Welcome back to Mr. Zombie. Tonight, we're stopping by 3 gas stations that never really close, and neither do the things waiting outside. These are true stories from people who worked the night shift, alone, surrounded by silence, cold light, and endless darkness beyond the glass doors. Turn off your lights, put on your headphones, and listen carefully, because tonight, someone might still be out there. Skull Story 1. The Man Who Never Paid. Eli hated night shifts. The silence at 2 a.m. felt heavier than daylight ever did. He'd been working 3 weeks at the quick fuel station off Highway 39, a lonely stop in the middle of farmland and fog. The manager's only real rule was simple. If you ever see a black SUV at Pump 4, stay inside. Call me. Don't go out there. Sounded like a joke. Until the night the headlights appeared. Rain hissed across the parking lot as the black SUV rolled up, engine idling low. The driver didn't get out. Eli stared at the monitor. The pump activated itself. Gas began to flow even though no one had swiped a card. He leaned closer to the glass. The interior of the car was pitch black. No movement, no outline. Then, a tall figure stepped out, face hidden under a soaked hat. The man stood still, head slightly tilted, and Eli swore he was staring straight at him through the window. The camera feed glitched. One frame, static. The next, the SUV was gone. No taillights, no tire marks, just rainwater rippling under Pump 4. When the manager arrived that morning, Eli showed him the footage. The man went pale. "Delete it," he said. "That car hasn't been here in 10 years. Eli froze. "You mean the same one?" "Yeah," the manager whispered. "Same plate, same driver. He died out there." Pump 4 exploded the night of the storm. That night, Eli came back to work. He promised himself he wouldn't look at the pumps. But sometime around 3 a.m., the faint hum of a car engine filled the air again. He looked up anyway. Pump 4, black SUV, the meter ticking. And through the glass, a shadow slowly lifted its head. The clock on the wall read 3:12 a.m., but Eli's wristwatch had stopped ticking. The air conditioner hummed softly inside the store, but it couldn't drown out the low rumble outside. The SUV's engine still running, steady and cold. Eli's hands trembled as he switched the monitor feed. Every camera showed rain and empty asphalt except one. Camera 4. The SUV was right there, perfectly still, no reflection of headlights, no visible license plate. Just darkness inside the windshield. He grabbed the landline phone. The line was dead. The only thing louder than the silence was the faint click-click-click of the pump counter rolling, as if invisible hands were squeezing the trigger. "All right," he muttered. "Just record it. Don't go outside." But the monitor flickered. For a split second, he saw his own face on the screen, distorted, pale, like it was being reflected through water. Then it switched to static. Something hit the glass. A single heavy thud. Eli turned. A wet handprint smeared across the window from outside. 5 long fingers. It slid down slowly, leaving streaks through the condensation. He froze. There was no one there. The security light above Pump 4 began to flicker. The air outside shimmered faintly, and then the SUV's taillights blinked once, twice. The car door creaked open, though no one stepped out. Eli backed away from the window. He could hear something now. Faint, metallic sounds, like coins dropping on concrete. He turned toward the counter. On the counter, lying in a perfect row, were 6 coins, old, worn quarters, covered in soot. Eli's phone vibrated in his pocket. The screen flashed with a number he didn't recognize. 00000000000. He hesitated, then answered. A voice whispered, "He never paid. Don't turn off the lights." The line went dead. Eli looked up. Every fluorescent bulb in the store flickered off at once. The pumps outside went dark. For a moment, there was only the sound of the rain. Then headlights blazed through the front glass, so bright they turned the room white. He stumbled backward, shielding his eyes. And when the light vanished, so did the SUV. The coins on the counter were gone, too. Eli's manager arrived at sunrise to find him sitting behind the register, pale, shaking. "You saw him again, didn't you?" Eli just nodded. The manager sighed and handed him an old photo from a filing cabinet, an image of the original station, decades earlier. In the corner of the picture, barely visible through the grain, stood a man beside a black SUV, one hand on the pump. Next to him was a sign that read, "Pump foreclosed. Do not use." Eli didn't quit after that night, though he should have. The manager told him to take a few days off, but the pay was good, and he couldn't afford to lose it. He convinced himself it was just stress, exhaustion, or some kind of electrical glitch in the cameras. Logic always wins, right? But logic stopped working the moment he came back. It was his first night shift after the incident. Everything looked normal. The pumps were running, light steady, no weird calls, until midnight struck. That's when the smell hit him. It was faint at first, gasoline and burnt metal seeping in through the vents. Eli covered his nose and checked the monitors. All clear. Then a sudden flash on camera 4. A burst of static so strong it almost blinded him. When the feed cleared, there it was again. The black SUV, perfectly centered at pump 4. He grabbed the phone, still dead. His radio, static. And then the counter began ticking again. Gasoline flowing. Except the nozzle was still in its holder. Eli walked to the window, shaking. Outside, puddles rippled though no wind blew. The world beyond the glass looked wrong. The lights flickered, and for a split second, the gas station seemed frozen in another time. The prices on the sign changed, $1.19 per gallon. Through the fog, a man appeared, the same man from the photo. Hat, trench coat, shadowed face. He wasn't moving, just staring at the window. Eli took a step back. The air turned colder. His breath fogged the glass. The figure lifted one hand and pointed directly at him. And then, from somewhere deep beneath the floor, Eli heard a muffled boom, like a distant explosion. The lights went out. When he came to, it was dawn. His manager was shaking him awake behind the counter. Everything looked normal again. No SUV, no smell, no damage. Except for one thing. On the counter beside him lay 6 blackened coins, still warm to the touch. And on the glass window, faint but visible in the daylight, were the words, smeared in soot. "See you next shift." The manager said nothing. He just walked to the pump controls and silently taped a new sign over the screen of pump 4. Closed, do not use. Story 2. The Restroom Key. Jamie always said the night shift was easy money, quiet, slow, predictable. Her gas station sat right off a desert highway in northern Arizona, where no one stopped unless they absolutely had to. The only thing she hated was the restroom. It wasn't inside the store. It was a small, cement block building about 30 meters away, barely lit by a flickering bulb. To get in, customers had to ask for a metal key attached to a heavy iron bar, so they wouldn't steal it. At 3:08 a.m., the bell above the door jingled. A man walked in. He looked like a trucker, tall, tired, with cracked hands and bloodshot eyes. "Restroom?" he asked, voice low. Jamie smiled politely, handed him the key, and pointed toward the door outside. He nodded once and left. Minutes passed, then 20, then 40. Jamie frowned. She hadn't seen him return the key. She glanced through the glass. The restroom door was still closed. The iron bar wasn't on the counter. At 4 a.m., she decided to check. She grabbed a flashlight and stepped into the cold. The desert wind cut through her jacket. The light flickered as she neared the small building. The door handle was cold, locked from the inside. She knocked lightly. "Sir? You okay in there?" No answer. She knocked harder. Nothing. Only the faint buzz of the overhead light. Goosebumps crawled up her arms. She went back inside and called the number her manager had given her for emergencies. No one picked up. She tried again. By the time the morning sun rose, she was exhausted. But the restroom door was still locked. The next shift worker arrived at 7 a.m., and together they pried the door open with a crowbar. The room was empty. No sign of the man. No footprints, no smell of gasoline or cigarettes, nothing. But sitting on the sink, clean and dry, was the restroom key. Perfectly polished, no rust, no dirt. Jamie felt her throat tighten. She turned toward the corner. The light was still flickering. That's when she noticed the mirror above the sink, the kind that covered the wall. Someone had drawn a handprint into the fogged glass. But the air was warm, not cold, and the handprint was on the inside of the mirror. Jamie didn't sleep that day. Even after her shift ended, the image of that handprint burned in her mind. It wasn't possible. The mirror was solid glass, nailed to the wall. How could anyone touch the inside? She came back that night anyway. The desert wind was dry, sharp. The station's fluorescent lights buzzed like flies. Everything felt off, heavier somehow. At around 2:47 a.m., a pair of headlights cut through the dark. A semi-truck pulled in, big, red, covered in dust. No one got out. Jamie watched from behind the counter. The engine idled for a moment, then shut off. Minutes passed. Nothing. Finally, she stepped outside. The truck was empty. The driver's door was open, keys still in the ignition. The metal restroom key, her key, hung from the steering wheel. Jamie froze. She hadn't left the building all night. She reached out, hand trembling, and took the key. It was warm. Then the restroom light turned on by itself. She stared across the parking lot. That tiny white bulb flickering in the dark, same as before. Her breath caught in her throat. She called out, "Hello? Anyone there?" The light blinked twice like an answer. Her radio crackled, static. Then a faint voice came through, slow and broken. "Don't lock it." Jamie's stomach twisted. "Who is this?" The radio hissed louder. The same voice, closer now, clearer. "Don't lock it again." She dropped the radio and ran inside, slamming the door. But the bathroom light outside didn't stop flickering. It blinked faster, like something was moving in front of it. Jamie turned off all the lights in the store. Her heart pounded as she watched through the window. The flickering stopped. Then a shape. A shadow, tall, still, leaning slightly forward. Someone was standing by the restroom door. She couldn't make out details, only that it was the same height, same build as the trucker from last night. He lifted his arm slowly and pointed straight at her. Jamie's phone buzzed on the counter. Unknown number. She answered without thinking. The same voice whispered, "You shouldn't have taken it back." The call ended. Outside, the restroom door swung open with a bang. The light inside went out completely. By morning, when her manager came, the door was closed again. No footprints, no wind. The key was missing, and in the mirror above the sink, faint, like a message fading in sunlight, were the words, "Key is mine." Jamie begged her boss to change the restroom lock, but he just laughed it off. "You're stressed. Nobody's haunting a bathroom." He replaced the key though, same heavy iron bar, new tag, new copy. Still, she couldn't shake the dread that followed her every night. The first few shifts passed quietly, until the fifth night. At exactly 3:07 a.m., the bell above the door chimed. No one came in. Jamie checked the cameras. Every screen showed the parking lot empty, except one. The outside restroom feed was active. The door stood wide open. The light flickered. She froze. She hadn't given out the key all night. She picked up her flashlight, stepped outside, and followed the glow. The desert was still silent. Only the hum of distant power lines broke the quiet. As she got closer, she saw the door slowly swing shut by itself. Her breath caught. The key was hanging from the doorknob. The tag glinted under the light. It was the old one, the one she'd lost. Jamie backed up, heart hammering, but the light above her began to stutter violently, on, off, until finally it went black. The night swallowed everything. From inside the restroom came the faintest sound, water dripping. Then, a single knock from the other side of the door. Knock, knock, knock. Jamie's flashlight flickered. She raised it. The door creaked open an inch. The smell of rust and damp concrete filled her lungs. She wanted to run, but something pulled her forward, the urge to see, to know. She stepped inside. The air was freezing. The walls were wet, the sink dripping steadily. She looked up at the mirror. It was covered in condensation again, fogged over completely, except for one spot, a circle the size of a hand. Her reflection wasn't moving. It just stood there, smiling faintly. Jamie stumbled back, dropping her flashlight. It rolled toward the stall. The beam caught a pair of muddy boots under the door, motionless. The lock clicked. She screamed and shoved the door open. Empty. No one inside. Just the key sitting on the toilet lid, clean, shining, brand new. Jamie ran back to the store, locked the doors, and never went near that restroom again. The next morning, the manager arrived to open up. He called her, annoyed. Hey, where'd you put the restroom key? Jamie blinked. What do you mean? It's outside. He sighed. No, not that one. The spare one from my office. It's gone too. Later that week, the station installed a digital keypad on the bathroom door. It still unlocks by itself. Story 3. The Night Visitor. Ben didn't believe in ghosts. He'd been working at a 24-hour gas station for nearly 2 years, tucked between endless desert and empty road. The silence of night didn't scare him anymore, until one shift in late October, when the cameras started showing things that weren't there. It was 2:33 a.m. when he saw her. At first, she looked like a shadow on the far edge of the road, thin, slow-moving. Then she stepped into the light of the nearest lamppost. A woman in a white dress, barefoot, her hair soaked as if she'd been standing in rain. Ben blinked. There hadn't been rain in weeks. She walked toward the station, her head slightly tilted, eyes fixed on the glass doors. Her skin was pale, gray almost. He reached for the door handle, instinct maybe, but froze halfway. Something about her didn't move right. Her arms hung stiffly at her sides, her steps uneven, like she was being pushed forward instead of walking. She stopped just outside the doors. For several seconds, she stood there motionless. Then her lips moved. Ben couldn't hear her through the glass, but he could read the shape of the words. Help me. He fumbled for the phone and dialed the local sheriff. Static. No signal. He grabbed the store's radio. More static. When he looked up again, she was gone. The security feed still showed her standing outside. But through the glass, nothing. Ben's stomach turned. He rewound the footage. The woman approached the store step by step, and then the frame glitched. For 1 second, the image doubled, 2 versions of her overlapping, one standing by the door, the other standing behind the counter, right where he was sitting now. The monitor flickered again. Now both versions were gone. The lights overhead buzzed once, then dimmed. The hum of the refrigerator stopped. For the first time that night, Ben could hear his own heartbeat. Then thump. Something hit the front window hard. He turned slowly. A handprint pressed against the glass. Wet, shaking, sliding down slowly. He ran forward and shone his flashlight outside. Nothing. Just the empty road and the dust swirling under the lights. The clock on the wall read 2:41 a.m. The cameras showed static. Every single one, except for the one behind him. It flickered, then cleared, and on the screen he saw a pale woman in white, standing right behind the counter. Ben spun around so fast he nearly fell over. No one there. The store was empty, just humming freezers and the buzzing light over the counter. But on the monitor, she was still there, her reflection standing where he'd just been. Her head tilted slightly, her mouth moving again. This time, the feed picked up audio. Faint, warped, distant. Don't let him leave. Ben's throat went dry. Who? He whispered to the air, though he knew how stupid it sounded. The woman's eyes flicked up on the screen, like she'd heard him. Then the camera cut to black. For the next few hours, the gas station stayed quiet. No cars, no headlights, only the low whistle of the wind sliding under the doors. Ben forced himself to focus on inventory, pretending nothing happened. At 4:12 a.m., a truck finally pulled in. Red cab, long trailer, its headlights cutting through the fog. The driver stepped out, a heavy-set man with a gray beard. He looked exhausted, rubbing his eyes as he walked in. Coffee, he muttered. Strong. Ben poured a cup, trying not to look shaken. The man noticed anyway. You okay, kid? You look like you've seen a ghost. Ben forced a laugh. Yeah. Long night. The man took his coffee, paid, and left. Ben watched him climb back into the truck and drive off into the fog. The tail lights disappeared. He turned back toward the monitors and froze. Camera 2 showed the truck still parked outside, the door open. The driver was standing beside it, not moving, just staring at the store. Ben blinked and looked through the window. The parking lot was empty. Back to the screen, the driver was still there, now turned halfway toward the highway. Then, without warning, he fell forward out of frame. Ben ran outside. The air was cold and heavy, the kind that pressed against your chest. He scanned the lot, no truck, no man. But there, in the dust by Pump 2, were bare footprints leading away from the store. Small footprints, bare, feminine. They stopped halfway to the road. He followed them with his flashlight until they vanished completely. When he turned back toward the station, the door was open. The light inside was flickering again. Ben's radio came alive in his pocket. Static, then a faint voice, the same broken whisper from before. You shouldn't have let him go. Ben stumbled back into the store, slamming the glass door behind him. The lights flickered, and for a second, just a second, he saw her standing in the reflection inside the store behind him again. Then darkness swallowed everything. He reached for his flashlight, hand shaking. The beam swept across the aisles. Rows of chips, bottled drinks, and candy bars glowing in the half-light. Nothing moved. Then the door chime rang. Ben froze. The door hadn't opened. It rang again, then again. Ding, ding, ding. Each sound closer than the last, as if someone invisible was walking up to the counter, one step at a time. The air turned cold, heavy enough to sting his lungs. He could see his breath now drifting in front of him. The intercom system crackled to life above him, even though he hadn't touched it in months. A voice whispered through the static. He didn't stop. You should have stopped him. Ben's flashlight flickered, and suddenly the security monitors lit up again. Camera 1, the road, empty. Camera 2, the pumps, deserted. Camera 3, the counter, and behind it her. Her hair hung over her face, dripping wet, leaving dark streaks on the floor. The same white dress, the same lifeless posture. Only now, her head was tilted backward, mouth open like she was screaming silently. Ben's ears started ringing. The sound wasn't from the intercom. It was in his head, vibrating behind his eyes. He backed toward the door, but the handle wouldn't move. It was ice cold, frozen shut. He turned back, and the monitors were all showing the same image now. Himself, sitting behind the counter, smiling blankly, eyes black. Then everything went dark. A single knock echoed from outside the glass, slow, steady. Ben lifted his flashlight, breath catching. Through the faint fog, he saw her face pressed against the window. Eyes wide open, pupils gone, her skin gray and peeling. She mouthed one word. Stay. Then she was gone. Morning came with the sound of tires on gravel. A sheriff's cruiser pulled in. The officer stepped out, knocking on the locked glass. Ben blinked awake on the floor behind the counter, heart pounding. Son, the officer said, frowning. You work nights here? Ben nodded weakly. The officer sighed. You might want to take the day off. Some trucker got hit on the interstate last night. Said he stopped here for gas around 2:30. Ben's voice cracked. Did he say anything? The officer hesitated. Yeah. He told dispatch he picked up a woman on the road. Said she disappeared before he reached the station. The officer looked toward the window and frowned. You should clean that glass, by the way. Someone left a mess. Ben turned. On the window, drawn in perfect arcs of dust and condensation, were 5 letters, shaky but clear. Stay.